The boss fights were my favorite part of Hollow Knight for a long time, and I'm pretty sure if they weren't everyone else's favorite element, they at least were memorable and resonated with a lot of people in some way. Heck, Team Cherry even made an entire DLC update focused entirely on fighting the bosses, so they're definitely an extremely important element to get right in a sequel. Going into Silksong, my expectations for the boss fights were set incredibly high. For the most part, my expectations were met, and in some cases even exceeded. But of course, not every boss fight is created equally. There's a few stinkers in every game, so let's go ahead and rank the Silksong bosses from least enjoyable to most enjoyable. Some disclaimers. Number 1, this list is incredibly subjective and entirely for fun. Please don't take it too seriously. Number 2, there are 3 optional boss fights I have not yet encountered in my playthroughs as of the time of writing. Those would be Chakra, the Act 2 version of Garmin and Zaza, and the Steel Soul exclusive boss. As such, these 3 will be excluded from my ranking. Number 3, Silksong has a ton of variables like optional crests and tools. We may have found a boss at different power levels within our playthrough, leading to different levels of enjoyability. Number 4, and lastly, this list still feels early for me. Silksong is still a relatively new game, and opinions are bound to change. 1 to 3 years from now, this video could be remade by me and the ranking could look super different, especially if we get DLC. Oh, and most of the footage on screen is from my first playthrough, so don't expect top tier or even good gameplay for all of them. Without further ado, let's go ahead and rank every Silksong boss from worst to best. Spoilers for all of Silksong ahead. Number 42, the Kragler. Something has to be in last place. In my Hollow Knight ranking, it was Winged Nosk for wasting its high potential and amazing design on being an underwhelming encounter where you just kind of sit around and wait for your chance to occasionally interact with the boss. Naturally, Silksong's last place is a uniquely designed creature featured in early trailers, so wound up being an underwhelming encounter where you just kind of sit around and wait for your chance to occasionally interact with the boss. Sound familiar? This one boils down to hide under the platform while it attempts to throw up acid onto you, jump up and smack it once, hide back under the platform and repeat until it dies. An incredibly disappointing fight with not much going on. But what more do you expect from a creature that spits tons of acid on its food? It can't have much nutrients left for brain power or creative moves if all of its potential food is converted to bones by the time it's done drowning them in acid. Number 41, Plasmified Zango. Spent a good few minutes hitting this guy and backing off to heal before I figured out that this guy was just a DPS check. I seriously thought he had like a massive health pool rather than just a decent one that was consistently healing back up. And I know I'm dumb for that given the healing flash and sound effects this guy constantly puts out. Zango is a nothing boss as far as combat encounters go, just wandering around in a little cave and spewing out blue Powerade. He'll occasionally crouch down and move faster than usual, like he's trying to make himself more aerodynamic or something. The only impression Zango really leaves is the lore implications of potential lifeblood zombies and how right the Pale King was to outlaw the stuff from Hallow Nest. But I like him more than the Kragler because at least you can just constantly wail away at him rather than having to hide and stand around for half the fight. Number 40, Volt Verm. In Hunter's Journal, Hornet calls this one barely a bug, which is funny because it's also barely a boss fight. These pink variants of Wiglet just ask you to dodge their electric blast while you wail on them, which is absolutely nothing after the years of practice we've had dodging Umu's electric attack. Feels like a lesser version of Pantheon Umu, because at least there I enjoyed the mental gymnastics of trying to line up the boss with the smaller jellies he spawned in before blowing them both up. Here the Volt Verm just appear from set spots on the walls and let you smack them. The platforming leading up to the fight was more interesting than the actual fight itself, but at least they gave you an amazing tool as a reward. Number 39, Broodmother. She wants to be Flukemarm so bad. Much like the alluring god of motherhood hidden in the sewers from the first Hollow Knight, Broodmother is also a disgusting abomination giving birth to more disgusting abominations. I really don't like enemy encounters that restrict your movement, and the disgusting goop Broodmother spits out does exactly that. Combine taking away your movement with a cramped and small arena, and you're in for a bad time. Anytime you get stuck in the goop, prepare to be dove at like you work at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Not my favorite fight, and it sucks even more that Team Cherry won't let us take out the new baby Broodmother that takes its place. If we could, I'd definitely bump this up a spot or two just for the satisfaction. Number 38, the Unraveled. This is an interesting one since I'm a bit unclear if the big conductor guy is the Unraveled or if the Unraveled is more of a collective term for all the enemies that are in this pit together. If I had to guess, I'm leaning towards the latter. This boss's main attack is a bit jank and takes some slight adjustment in your positioning to get used to, as the conductor just runs towards you until it hits the wall and bounces back towards the center of the arena when it collides with the wall. I often found myself hit by its fat hitbox on its bounce back towards the center of the room, and it was a bit annoying to deal with at first. You don't just fight the big conductor guy alone though, you also fight a bunch of other bugs that had silk related operations in the White Ward, and they can be tricky to deal with since I believe at least one of them is exclusive to this fight. One of the coolest attacks is the big sword or spear things that the Unraveled makes rain down from above. and the brief pause they take before crashing down towards the player can sometimes mess up your timing and cause you to take a stray hit. Cool concept for a boss, but I wonder if it would have been better in a slightly more open arena. Number 37. Lost Garmon. It's a shame to see such a great friend fall into the void. Having Zaza lead us here, knowing that something is terribly wrong, and that Garmon needs to be put out of his misery is truly tragic. Fight isn't too hard. He's like a souped up version of our standard Act 3 enemies by hurling out void or lashing out around him. Or I guess he's also like a way easier version of Lost Lace if you want to think about it that way. I'm mostly just putting him this low on the enjoyability ranking because I'm mad that we had to be the ones to put this guy down. I'll never look forward to this fight in any playthrough. Number 36. Disgraced Chef Lagoli. I did not enjoy this fight at all at first. That fat annoying cannibal really annoyed me with how much they spam the muck maggot meatballs throughout the fight. Maybe it's more enjoyable if you go into the fight with the Wreath of Purity to not have to absolutely lock in and dodge every single spray of maggots with extreme precision. But at least the fight gave us two worthwhile things: the bug turning around meme and the hilarious dump truck attack. This boss gets bonus points just for this attack existing and being hilarious. Number 35. Raging Conchfly. The two Conchfly fights actually take up 2 slots on this list. Personally found the one with the 2 giant Conchflies more enjoyable, and we'll briefly touch on that one later. The Raging Conchfly has every right to be mad since we killed what I'm assuming was its mate, sibling, or close friend. But what I can't stand is those tiny little drill mobs it spawns in. I swear they got the most BS angles every time and unexpectedly snipe me no matter how hard I try to dodge. It almost feels like they're homing sometimes and gives me PTSD to Hanzo's scatter arrow in Overwatch 1. I'm just not good at bullet hell type bosses, as I always take a ton of damage fighting the Oblobbles and Hollow Knight also. So as soon as the smaller drill guys come out, my brain just stops functioning altogether. Number 34. Pale Stag. It's really special to be able to see Verdania in its prime. This place and its residents are beautiful. The Pale Stag makes for an okay encounter with a magical creature. It's really only got one attack. It teleports to either the far left or far right side of the screen and shoots out razor leaf attacks at you. That's it. I'm going to claw line over to it and smack it between each teleport, but there's really nothing else going on here. Number 33. Skull Tyrant. Is this even a boss? This is just a souped up version of standard Skull Scuttler enemies with not much special going on. Wiki has it classified as a boss though, and the internet never lies, so I guess it gets a slot here. Skull Scuttler can charge at you, jump around and make boulders fall down from above, and I think that's about it. I don't really have anything bad to say about this one, but I don't really have anything too nice to say about it either. It's just a bit unmemorable compared to other encounters in the game, but I'd still consider it more enjoyable than the encounters prior on this list. Number 32. Father of the Flame. Really despised this fight at first. Then I bought the Magma Bell and felt better. Design-wise, something looks off about this fight. It looks unfinished almost, or like a boss thrown together in less time than the others in the game. Given that the Wisp thicket is so tiny, I wonder if that's true, but I'm just thinking out loud here. The more I think about this one, the more I appreciate it for at least being a different kind of boss encounter. Father of Flame asks you to use your movement abilities to their fullest, dodging and weaving with your claw lines and double jumps to take out all of its high up weak points. Nothing too exciting here since visually you're basically just fighting a tree, but I appreciate it for at least trying something different. Number 31. Sister Splinter. They nerfed her in some way a couple patches in, but I've only fought the pre-nerf version as of the time of writing, and even then I didn't find her that challenging. I beat her first try, but she's an Act 1 boss, so that makes sense. I assume most people would struggle with the little spinning Beyblade dudes she spawns in, but they're very satisfying to just use your Silk Spear on and simply one-shot them. I like that she tries to confine you into a smaller version of the arena with her vine walls, but you can smack them down and reclaim the safe space for yourself. Pretty fun, but a short encounter. Number 30. Tormented Trobio, and number 29. Trobio. I'm sorry, Trobio fans, I really am. I think Trobio is a really fun and memorable character with a great boss theme, but I cannot stand either versions of these fights. I prefer to be able to see the screen when I fight a boss, and I don't like that Trobio can effectively smokescreen himself with his wide array of explosions. I put Tormented Trobio behind base Trobio only because I think the Tormented version has even more explosions than the base fight. The Tormented fight I got first try though, but I still didn't feel happy about it due to my prior experience on the first fight. In retrospect, I can appreciate the small ways you can adjust to Trobio's BS, like smacking his exploding balloons away or carefully positioning yourself against his tornado attack. These fights are okay, maybe even bad, but the character is really enjoyable. Claw Mirrors is a sick tool as a reward though. Thanks, Trobio. Number 28. Four brothers Cygnus and Groan. These two are essentially just sadistic managers, which is the last theme I need a video game to remind me of when attempting to escape my real life stresses. The fight starts off just against Cygnus, who can either do a series of slash attacks or throw out and recall their weapon like a boomerang. Eventually, Groan joins the fun, raining down spears from above or diving towards the floor and slamming them down with a small AoE. The interesting part of the fight comes from having to deal with both of them at the same time, since Cygnus attacks from the ground and Groan attacks from the air. Having to juggle both is engaging, but I mostly found the mobs that spawn in partway through the fight really annoying and throwing me off when I just wanted to learn the actual boss pattern. Do yourself a favor and wear Magma Bell for this one as well if you don't want to just get deleted. Number 27, Moss Mother. A good, standard, run-of-the-mill first boss. There's nothing crazy here, but I have no complaints, and Moss Mother serves her function well. This will be your first taste of boss combat in Silksong and gets you used to moving around and hitting things with your needle. Around the middle of the list seems about right for Moss Mother. Number 26, Bell Beast. A step up from Moss Mother, Bell Beast asks you to use more of your brain, which makes sense for the second boss in the game. You'll learn to react based on the position and stance of the boss during the fight, quickly deciding whether you need to stay on the ground as it jumps over you or jump yourself as it lunges on the ground towards you. Combine this with having to deal with the bouncing bell projectiles and you've got yourself a pretty decent fight that rewards you with the absolute best dog. Number 25, Savage Beast Fly. Oh boy, the horror stories that were going around on launch about this guy. People were acting like this thing was Gojo, obliterating you into nothingness and leaving you with void in place of hope. I'm sure my relatively high placement of this one is going to ruffle a few feathers. The double mask damage is a bit crazy if you find this guy in Act 1 and only have the starting 5 mask, or even when you get the 6th mask, since you'll still die in 3 hits to this thing. But, unlike a lot of people, I did not find this guy in Act 1 as I got stuck on the Hunter's March Arena Gauntlet for a few tries and decided to just come back later. I came back in Act 2, obliterated the Ant Arena, and beat the Savage Beast Fly first try. I can certainly see this thing being a more suspenseful fight with a lot less upgrades, but that wasn't the way I experienced it, so I won't rank it on a hypothetical situation. It was a fine and enjoyable fight the way I experienced it, and I think the second time you fight one of these is even more fun too. The second fight against one of these makes it more interesting by allowing the Savage Beast Fly to remove some parts of the floor, forcing you to deal with lava and consider your positioning a lot more. Honestly, pretty cool fight, and things are only going to get better from here. Number 24, Great Conch Flies. The more enjoyable version of the 2 conch flies fight in my opinion, since I don't have to deal with the mini geometry demons that the raging variant of this fight likes to spawn in. This fight is almost reminiscent of the Cogwork Dancers, which we'll touch on later, as you have to pay attention to the various lines the enemies will take and find a safe space in time. Good clean fun. Number 23, The Watcher at the Edge. More like the Aura Farmer at the Edge.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This guy is badass in design and concept, but for an Act 3 exclusive boss, I was expecting a little bit more on the gameplay side. All it can do is some close-up slashes with its sword, either on the ground or sweeping downward from the air after a big jump. You can't do anything if you play at a range with tools, and overall the fight is extremely basic considering how late you find it in the game. That said, it's still a cool concept for a boss, and I don't dislike it at all. Number 22, Moorwing. A decently challenging Act 1 boss. I think it killed me once on my first playthrough, but I'm not 100% on that and I need to check the VOD. I think this was another boss that was nerfed in some way in a post-launch patch also, so I'm more familiar with the pre-nerf fight currently if that is true. I like that you have to pay close attention to the wind scythes it sends out, as they can arc in 2 different and interesting patterns. A pretty good fight that makes you use your brain a bit. Number 21, Pinterest. Pinterest is like if flying bosses like Vengefly King were actually good. While she does spend a lot of time up in the air, she bobs and weaves through the air in a way that still allows you to find openings rather than hiding in the complete corner of the screen and forcing you to wait for the boss to play on your terms. I like that she blends throwing pins, lunging attacks, and massive needle art since it truly shows her combat prowess. Always nice seeing characters that teach you how to use an ability using a really powerful version of that ability in their own kit. Number 20, Gur the Outcast. I saw some folks on Twitter saying they think this guy was recently shadow buffed to deploy more of his traps at once, but I fought him before the alleged buff either way, so who knows. Gur has a super badass design, and I think conceptually it's really fun to see Hornet go from the hunter to the hunted for once. Just how long was he observing Hornet before he decided to lure her in? I like that his traps are also reminiscent of Hornet's Sting Shard, and he's also got these spikes that can rise up from the ground. Overall though, the traps are pretty easy to dodge and he never really does anything new throughout the fight. That trophy room at the end is a neat detail though. Number 19, Crawfather. An interesting concept for a boss fight, somewhat similar to the Unraveled in Execution. While the Unraveled would force you to alternate between fighting mobs and fighting the conductor, Crawfather eventually weaves together the mobs with the big boss himself. Crawfather can either jump up in the air and lunge down and forward, do 3 big beak slams while lunging forward, or shoot out full screen spikes from his body in 6 different directions. This effectively makes Crawfather a walking stage hazard to watch out for as you chip away at him and his minions while watching out for which part of the screen he's going to make unsafe next. I'd consider this a large improvement over the Unraveled and a great fight. Number 18, Grohl the Great. He's not that hard, guys, I swear. Yes, the default run back to Grohl is a bit atrocious. Just look up how to find the hidden biowater bench and you'll be fine. It's way closer to Grohl and makes the run back less infuriating after each loss. Also, you should probably grab the Wreath of Purity before fighting this guy. Those 2 tips alone will make your time a lot better. Before the fight with Grohl can start, you do first need to deal with a couple waves of Stilken, which can be a bit tedious, but they're not too challenging. The big guy can spit poison blobs at you that detonate after a second or 2. He has an attack where he tries to suck you into his mouth, but he's never even come close to pulling me in that way, so I have no idea what happens if you do get close. More waves of Stilkin can spawn in, and most interesting of all, a Vengeful Spirit attack. This boss has cool lore related to that last one, but that's not why we're here today. None of these attacks are particularly crazy to dodge. I mostly find myself getting caught by stray exploding poison blobs, and he's especially vulnerable to pogo spam since all of his projectiles shoot out forward and not up. Basically what I'm trying to say is, this boss was not as hard as the internet made me believe he'd be, but he's a good challenge to figure out his weaknesses and a fun boss to conquer. Number 17, Lace 1. The first Lace fight in Deep Docks will always be iconic. I think I watched the Nintendo Treehouse footage of it at least 10 times before the game's full release. While not delivering on the challenging side too much, this fight is a great introduction to Lace as a character, helps you get familiar with some of her attack patterns you'll be seeing scarier versions of later, and is well placed for a time in the game where you're still gathering your bearings and getting used to the controls. Fun time, a bit simple, but doesn't overstay its welcome, so that's good. Number 16, Second Sentinel. What a great concept for a boss. Slowly piecing together a cogwork heart and wondering what the heck it's used for. Unfortunately for me, I didn't find the second Sentinel's hidden chamber until I was deep into Act 3. By the time I got back around to completing their side quests and challenging them to a fight, I was a bit overpowered and had almost every upgrade. This made the fight shorter than I would have liked, but their moveset is especially cool. Second Sentinel utilizes Second Sentinel. Say that 5 times fast, I dare you. Second Sentinel utilizes twin scissor blades to shoot out energy beams reminiscent of Shaman Crest, parry your attacks, as well as do a big needle art reminiscent of the Pinterest's needle art. This feels like a fun duel between comrades, and I'm just sad I didn't find it any sooner in my journey to put us on a more level playing field. Number 15, Bell Beast. This fight has a lot going on at once, and I like that. You have to watch out for the beast's head, butt, and body that lines the arena. The head either spews out red goo or slashes in an area around itself, while the butt shoots out explosive projectiles to watch out for. But the best part, this fight gets absolute aura points from the final moment when the best dog ever comes in clutch to save the day. Good dog, best dog. At least 10 bonus rankings just for that moment. Number 14, Nyleth. Have you ever thought to yourself, what if a boss had that part of Coliseum of Fools where the floor went away? No? Me neither, but it's surprisingly fun here. Silksong has the added benefit of being able to heal while airborne, which makes this fight feel a lot less punishing. If we could only heal on the ground, sorry Shaman Crest users, this fight would feel a lot worse when the floor goes away. Nyleth forces you to dodge a variety of projectiles while keeping yourself from falling into the spikes below, and also being cognizant of her lunging to the opposite wall. Not only can she just slam into you directly if you're not careful, but she can make the wall she's clung onto unsafe for you by covering it completely in spikes. This one keeps my brain engaged in a good way, watching out for the boss while keeping yourself airborne, and has one of the best themes in the game accompanying it. Number 13, Fourth Chorus. Oh boy, do I adore the scale on this fight. It's a bit simple in terms of its attacks, and it should be since it's an Act 1 boss. The robot can swing horizontally across the screen, or vertically to remove some of your footing. But ever since I saw that giant spider boss that got cut from the first Hollow Knight, I knew I wanted a massive boss to go up against in these games. I like that if you're paying close attention to the environment, you can end the fight slightly early by dropping the giant boulder on the robot's head. I also like that there's a clever skip to just get out of here without fighting the robot at all by jumping off the left side and extending your momentum midair with a bind. I haven't been able to pull it off yet myself, but I've only tried it a couple times and I still think it's neat. One of my favorite Act 1 bosses, and a great introduction to how to fight with the Drifter's Cloak. Number 12, Seth. This Act 3 exclusive duel is fun, fast, and a good challenge. Seth zips around the screen, throwing a shield like Captain America, creating explosive blasts around himself, and lunging at you with his pin. This was one of the toughest fights for me in Act 3, as finding safe spots to deal damage with your needle while he has a shield to block with and an explosive blast to keep you at bay with is tricky. He even gets super serious after you deal enough damage to him and starts raining down multiple slam attacks at you in rapid succession. It reminds me a bit of when Soul Tyrant starts to get desperate. Overall, Seth is super cool, but why is he even tougher than the boss he's guarding? It seems to be a trend with bosses that guard other bosses in this game. Number 11. Grandmother Silk. Speaking of bosses that are protected by an even stronger boss, we've got Grandmommy Silk herself. Yeah, I think Lace 2 is a better and more challenging fight overall, but this fight is still epic and grand on its own. I almost wonder if it was intentional to make this one a bit easier, sort of like the Hollow Knight, since Act 3 is locked behind her. I don't know. Hollow Knight has the super boss immediately after them, so you have to do both fights consecutively. You don't fight a boss fight right after Grandmother Silk though, so I don't really get its purpose here. Regardless, she's got a variety of attacks that make this feel reminiscent of the Radiance. Floats up in the air above you, she's massive, she removes your footing by summoning spikes, and she shoots blades at you that can rain down from above or come at you from the side. A lot of similarities there, but I like the new additions like her grab attack and her claw swipe. I'll take those over the annoying homing orbs that the Radiance uses any day. Pretty fun fight with a decent challenge, but not quite enough challenge for what's supposed to be the final boss of the game technically. Number 10, Phantom. Silksong has a lot of aura farmers, huh? We finally cracked the top 10 with one of the coolest bosses in the entire game. Phantom is a fun 1v1 against a tragic, forgotten being. These blade versus blade showdowns are always top tier in these games. The fact that you can hear the organ on the way to the fight, accompanied by the fact that it absolutely kicks off this banger of a soundtrack as soon as the fight starts, is so cool. I'm very curious what Phantom looks like under the mask, since Phantom only seems to put it on if they need to face someone, but the game unfortunately never does us the favor of revealing that secret. This fight also has the absolute coolest way to acquire a silk skill in the game, using Phantom's parry against them for the finishing blow before claiming it permanently for yourself. Probably an easier fight than the other option for getting into the Citadel, but maybe that just comes down to personal playstyle. Number 9, Clover Dancers, and number 8, Cogwork Dancers. Yeah, I placed the Cogwork Dancers over the more challenging version, so what? Both of these fights are a lovely dance where you just get a brief moment to get out of the way, while also finding brief opportunities to sprinkle in some hits on the two bosses. Except, I guess Clover Dancers, you can only hit one of the bosses, but whatever. I like that the dancers alternate between moving in sync to moving out of sync, forcing you to pay close attention and not get too comfortable partway through the fight. I'll state the obvious that's probably been said a million times, but these fights remind me of the Mantis Lords and Sisters of Battle a bit in execution. The only reason I place Clover Dancers below their Cogwork counterpart is because Clover Dancers has an absolutely obnoxious run back. One of the worst in the game in my opinion. Some of the enemies on the way are extremely obnoxious, and there's no hidden bench in Verdania that I'm aware of that makes it any better. Maybe it's unfair to rank a boss based on its run back, but I'm petty and I don't like this one. Plus, it's my list, so I can bend the rules as I please. Number 7, Widow. Our first encounter with the Weaver boss in the series if you don't count Hornet the Half-Weaver, and it's a banger. Widow has an amazing boss theme and an engaging fight to accompany it. She may not be able to produce her own silk anymore, but she manipulates Grandmother Silk's thread well enough that makes me fear how strong she would be if she could still summon her own. Bells falling from all directions, claw swipes, lunges, and a massive stage hazard attack where the floor no longer becomes a safe space. There's a lot to watch out for here, and it makes the fight incredibly engaging and fun despite only being an Act 1 boss. Number 6, Lace 2. I thought the amount of times I listened to Lace's theme on repeat leading into Silksong was a lot, but turns out it was nothing compared to the amount of times I'd have to listen to it here. This is the Act 2 boss that took me the most amount of tries to defeat and the longest amount of time to wrap my head around. To be fair, on my first playthrough I got here with basically minimal upgrades and barely any additional exploring since I was just so worried about progressing the story from my Let's Play and not getting spoiled on story moment. This fight has everything I love about the Needle 1v1s. Lace is fast, nimble, has a variety of attacks that can come at you from the ground or in the air, and this arena is just beautiful. They absolutely need to make this the Smash Bros stage for when Hornet gets into Smash Bros on Switch 2. I'm manifesting. Number 5, The Last Judge. From the Act 2 boss that took me the most amount of tries over to the Act 1 boss that took me the most amount of tries, I'm one of those people that you leave "bro, it was so obvious" comments to regarding the self-destruct at the end, by the way. I got caught in that big explosion because I was too worried about saying something for the commentary that I wasn't paying enough attention to the game anymore. So yeah, I had to fight this boss again after my many struggles to get that first win. I don't blame the game for that though. I don't think it's jank or a cheap mechanic. It was my own fault for not paying enough attention, and the game does give you fair warning. This boss has presence. I love how they just first appear ominously in the background, face partially lit up, before they jump in to deliver their final judgment upon Hornet. Their massive scale, unique weapon, and huge range on their attacks makes this a memorable encounter that you need to be absolutely locked in for. I also love that the first phase is somewhat like a tutorial in learning the basics of the boss's attacks before the fire gets added in and the real fight starts. Reminds me a bit of starting with one Mantis Lord and going up to 2 in Hollow Knight, only more unique since each of the Last Judge's attacks have a different fire pattern to watch out for, and you'll need to learn all of them if you hope to enter the Citadel this way. This is Act 1 combat at its absolute best. Number 4, Crust King Khan. Noticing that most of the bosses I beat on my first try aren't high up on the list. The process of learning the boss over time, because it has a variety of interesting attacks, usually increases my enjoyment level. But Crust King Khan got all the way up to spot 4 despite being a first try attempt for me. Why? This fight was a pure adrenaline rush start to finish. The Crust King warms you up with a decently paced introduction to his attacks. Now he can manipulate the Coral Tower towards you in dangerous pillars. The more you wear down the king, the faster and faster he hurls them towards you, making for a fast, fun, and memorable fight. I'm very much looking forward to fighting this guy again in DLC or in subsequent playthroughs, because that one fight just wasn't enough. Number 3, First Sinner. I love a boss with a good build-up. First Sinner being sealed away in a forgotten chamber of the slab, bound by enchanted chains with no hope to ever escape, really adds to her presence. Chains are also really reminiscent of releasing the Hollow Knight, which is a plus for me. This fight is like fighting Widow but dialed up to 11, and Widow was already a great time to begin with. When we covered Widow, I mentioned I'd like to see what the fight would be like if she could still use her Silk. Her Sinner answers that question somewhat by allowing her to bind and cast Rune Blast. It's always cool seeing a boss use a mechanic you've been taking for granted your entire journey, and with a well-timed smack or tool, you can halt her bind just like enemies can halt yours. One of Silksong's finest fights, and I wouldn't blame you at all if you said this was your number 1. Number 2, Hunter Queen Carmelita. I think we all knew this fight was going to be fire as soon as we saw that 2-second clip of it in a pre-release trailer. Carmelita is fast with a varied moveset, has a fun design, and is accompanied by one of the absolute best songs in the entire soundtrack. And that's saying a lot because Silksong's soundtrack is amazing all around. One of the coolest parts of this fight is that the vocals and the music are actually diegetic, or in other words, actually being sung for characters in the game to hear. Yes, Carmelita is actually singing for the duration of the fight, as when she staggers, the vocals completely stop. So Hornet is actually hearing Carmelita sing here. Carmelita can throw boomerang things in different patterns, summon spikes from the ground, and even turns her dress into a buzzsaw-like weapon for a fast-paced encounter that keeps you mobile and on your toes throughout its entirety. The fact that she can be such a tough opponent while delivering a beautiful performance simultaneously is so fun, and cements this as one of the most enjoyable fights in all of Silksong for me currently. Number 1, Lost Lace. This was such a close list. I could easily switch this one spot and Carmelita's spot depending on the day of the week. Lost Lace is the toughest fight in all of Silksong currently. It pushes you to your limits as a player, as it requires you to be mobile at all times with tight reaction times for certain attacks. Lost Lace can set up void traps and then go in for an attack while they're going off, forcing you to be super cognizant of your positioning in order to dodge both things simultaneously. Thematically, the fight at the bottom of the void is so badass, especially against Lace, who initially presented herself as a villain and challenged Hornet multiple times throughout her journey, only to be revealed as a victim in the end. And of course, being a victim of her mother's design wasn't enough, she becomes a victim to the void itself, and only Hornet is brave, clever, and strong enough to pull her out. What a beautiful way to end this game, and an absolute 10 out of 10 experience. And that's all the bosses for now. Thank you so much for tuning in, I hope you had fun. If you have any constructive criticism or disagree with any of my placements, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. Until next time, I will see you on the road ahead.